Welcome, Micah again. In this video, I'm going to show you how to export your webinar attendees from GoToWebinar and then import them to Infusionsoft and do an update. So what's going to happen in this situation typically is someone's going to attend a webinar. You're going to need to export it from GoToWebinar, match up that list of people to an Infusionsoft ID, and then once you have that Infusionsoft ID, you can do an update to Infusionsoft for tagging and any other actions that you want to do to those people who attended the webinar. Now this video, it doesn't require any other software or any integrations or anything. It's just instruction, and I do give you a file on the next page, an Excel file that you can use to match these up. So let me show you, I'm sorry, not on the next page, but under this video, let me go ahead and show you that Excel file. It's a really simple file. But, and I'm sorry that some of this is in Spanish, ignore that because the file itself is pretty normal. Basically, I have here one sheet of the Excel file is the webinar sheet, and this is where I'm going to put the email addresses of those people who attended the webinar. And then on this other sheet, I'm going to put the same email addresses that I export from Infusionsoft along with the contact IDs. And what will happen is it'll match that up and get that ready to import. So let me just give you a quick example. If I do test@test.com here, and I say their ID is 2, and I come over here and I say test@test.com, and that's it. It's pulling the contact ID from the other sheet for me. So that's what this little Excel file does, and I'll actually go through exactly how to use it. So here I am in GoToWebinar. Here's my GoToWebinar. I'm going to go under my webinars to generate reports, and then I'm going to pick a webinar. So here's a little meeting I had with a few people, and the format I'm going to pick is comma delimited text or CSV, and I'm going to go ahead and generate this report. It's going to open it in Excel. And when I open this file up, I just pause the screen for 1 second while I actually change these names just so I wouldn't be exposing any customer information. But pretend that this was 4 normal people who attended, normal names here. When I open the file up, though, it looks like this. There's some garbage up top that is just reporting stuff you don't need for this exercise, so you can get rid of it. And then underneath that, it's saying who attended, how interested they were, first name, last name, email, their registration date, and then this stuff is pretty interesting, their join time, what time they actually got to the webinar, and their leave time, and then you have the in-session duration in minutes. So all of that is pretty good stuff. The questions as well are here, which is kind of nice. If you have good info there, you can store these into notes within Infusionsoft. But what I'm going to do with all this information is I'm going to first of all rearrange it just a tiny bit. And what I want is, let's go ahead and clean this up. So I'm going to take all these cells above, and I'm clicking and dragging, and then I'm going to right click and say delete. Sorry about the Spanish again. It says, I bought this laptop down here and I can't get it back to English, so not sure what to do about that. But I'm going to eliminate those top cells, and now I've just got these cells left from this file that I downloaded from GoToWebinar. The only other thing I want to do is I want to take this one, this column E, and I want to move it to the front. So I want the email at the front of the line. And if I just copy, or I'm sorry, cut is what this would say, and then I right click here and I insert, so I have cut and insert, it's going to put the email in there. And what it's just done in this case is it's expanded this column in order to show the full FAQ thing that's going on here. So I can highlight the whole sheet here and come down here. This would say row height in English, and I'll do 12.75 and accept. So anyways, my file is fixed. None of that is actually important. The only thing that matters is you have the email addresses of those people who attended the webinar. That's the real key thing. The rest of this information is kind of a bonus in this situation. So what do we do with this? Let's copy these 5 lines. I'm going to go ahead and copy them, and I'm going to open up our other sheet, the sheet that I'm giving you, and on the webinar page I'm going to just paste these 5 lines in. So if I click here and I say insert copied cells, or I guess I have to highlight 5 cells and say paste, okay? So here are my 5 cells. And what I would want to do is this cell actually has a formula in it that I plan on using. So this cell here, these headers and whatever I can get rid of. But my main thing is I want the formula here in column B needs to be the formula, and I can allow this header row to stay here, but really I need the emails in column A, and then column B needs to be the formula. Then what I need to do, and this part you only do one time really, or every now and then, but you actually need your contacts from Infusionsoft. And don't get discouraged if this starts seeming a little bit complicated. Once you get the groove of it, it's about a 3-minute exercise for each webinar that you feel like doing this for. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to come into Infusionsoft and I'm going to go grab my list of people. So I go to find people. I put a filter on my search so it would only show me these test people, but you would search for your entire database, or at least anyone who might be on this list, because that's the idea, is to match the two together. Now make sure and don't do just a search up here, a quick search. Do a real search, a find people, and the difference is that they give you a different type of export if you come over here and say export people. The only two fields I want to export is the ID of the contact, and then if I scroll all the way down, it's kind of in a funny order, but the email, the main email, not email 1 or 2 or anything like that, just email. And I'm going to go ahead to the bottom and process this list. So I'll open that up, and you can see what I get from Infusionsoft in that case is I just get 2 columns. I just get IDs and emails. And again, I'm going to take the email and I'm going to cut it and I'm going to insert it in the first column so that it instead says email then ID. These 2 columns I can take straight over to our other file. So I'm going to copy those 2 columns, and I'm going to again go to this main file that I'm giving you with the webinar and the Infusionsoft pages, and this is my Infusionsoft database for this purpose. So I'm going to take these 2 and I'm going to paste in the columns that I just got from Infusionsoft, the emails and the IDs. And what you're going to see here is it has matched those contact IDs to my GoToWebinar information. So now my GoToWebinar information has been matched with my Infusionsoft information, and I'm now ready to import this list into Infusionsoft and run an update. Now, you may be thinking that you could have just as easily imported these email addresses, but that's going to create them as new contacts. We're actually talking about updating existing contacts. So at this point, I have my Infusionsoft IDs matched with the rest of my information here. I'm going to take everything. I intentionally pasted this header row in line 3. I want it now because I want all these columns, all these rows I should say, and I'm going to go ahead and copy these things, and I'm going to make a new file. So now that my data is ready, I need to put it in its own file in order to import it. So here it is, my new clean Excel file. I paste in those rows. I have my header row. I have my data here. It doesn't matter what order it's in when I go to import it into Infusionsoft, and I'll show you that in one second. But what I need to do is I need to save it. So I will say save as, and I was doing this earlier, so hopefully I have a file in here. The file type you need, by the way, is CSV, and that's the same in English. It'll say comma delimited or comma separated values, but it's CSV for Windows, not Mac. So if you're on a Mac, you may actually need to look for a Windows file, but it's basically CSV or comma separated values is the file format that Infusionsoft is going to require you to import. So in my case, I'm saving this as 2010-09-01 webinar attendees because that's the actual date of the webinar they attended, not today's date. That's how I keep it straight in my head. You can name it whatever you want, of course. I'll go ahead and save this. All that's done. Yes. Okay, maybe it won't let me, so I'll just change the name slightly. Let's pretend this webinar was on the 2nd. Okay, good enough. Now, like I said, this file is actually ready to go to Infusionsoft. So if I go over to Infusionsoft and I go to Setup, and I scroll down to Clean Up Your Data, and then within here I go to Modify Existing Records, People is what I want, and I'll hit Go. And then I'm going to find that file that I just created. So I'm going to take this one, number 2, webinar attendees, and when I hit next, this is where Infusionsoft allows you to map any fields that you feel like mapping. You don't have to. So the main field that I really do need mapped is this one under the attended column, and I should have changed the field name there, but you can see here I left this as attended. This is really the ID column for these records, as you can see. So if I were to change that, I would know it. But since we're here, I'll just roll with it. So I know that attended is ID, and what I need to do then is I need to match it to the Infusionsoft ID, which is about halfway down, well, 2/3 of the way down, and it's right here, Infusionsoft's contact ID. This match is what's going to look up existing records and update those records in the system already. Email, I don't even need to import. I can just say don't import. My interest rating, that might be interesting. I will put this into the person notes. First name, I don't really want to import. Last name, no need. Basically, registration date, don't care about. The time they joined I could keep, the time they left I could keep, the in-session duration I could keep, and you can see once you've done this, by the way, it just kind of remembers these headings and will map them for you, so it's already known to put these all in person notes, but that's probably what I would have done anyways. Unsubscribe I don't really need because they all said no. Questions asked, those can go in the person notes as well. So at this point, I can just kind of say next. It's going to show me, hey, this is how one of these is going to look. I say, okay, that's fine. And I have the option here. This is where I'm saying you can do tags, you can do whatever you want. So if I click here, I can expand this and say, you know what, the tag that I'm going to add for this group of people, and I'll create a new one. In my case, I use a category called webinars, and then my tag naming is the date of the webinar, so 2010-09-01. And then I can say attended, and then maybe depending on your format you can put the title in here. So I can say Infusionsoft Mastery monthly attended. I'll look at my existing stuff to make sure I'm using the right format, and I'll create that tag and save it. So as part of this import, these people, one of the main reasons I wanted them in here is so that I just knew that they attended the webinar, right? So I need to make sure and add that action, and I'll say done. At this point, Infusionsoft is going to take a few seconds, and then it'll run my import. Depending on how big that is, that can take any period of time, so I'll just wait 1 second. Oh, looks like it's done. Okay, so if I view this list of people that I imported, what I can now see, I believe it was number 2. If I go into his person notes, I can actually see that they joined the webinar at this time, and of course you'd kind of have to know what this is to make sense of it. They left at this time, that means they were in here for 82 minutes, they had an interest score of 58, and they asked these questions during the webinar. So you have all this now in person notes, and of course you also have this person tagged properly that they attended this particular webinar, and that's how you get them all the way from GoToWebinar in their reports to Infusionsoft. And remember, there's a little helper file down here, and the only purpose of this helper file, this Excel file that I'm giving you, is so that you can take your database out of Infusionsoft, place it in these 2 columns, and then take your list out of GoToWebinar and place it in this column plus these extra fields if you feel like it, and get a contact ID match so that when you import to Infusionsoft, or actually you're doing a modification of existing records, not really an import, it has that ID to work with, because that's what's required. So I hope this video helped. If you have any questions, you can ask them in the comments below. And if you have not seen our other GoToWebinar stuff, you might want to check that out. Thanks.